Alrighty, here we go. This is the Travis Neville podcast. My name is Travis Neville. I'm excited to be holding a different book in this spot pretty soon. I finished my personal editing last night. I was up till about 3 in the morning. Going through the last of it and getting it nailed down. I feel pretty good where it is at this point. I have decided on a new publisher. My current publisher, Atlantic. I don't know, Belly Up or whatever. Anyway, whatever. So I had to find a new publisher, which wasn't too tough. I mean, once you get a book out and you have some kind of presence online like I do, they basically line up for you, which is nice. It's a nice feeling to have. It was certainly different than the first time. They're like, "Who the fuck are you? Why should we give a shit what you wrote?" But now I can. Anyway, so yeah, got that done. Feeling really good about it. You can still get this one on Amazon anywhere you want to. As far as I know. Not as far as I know. I talked to my new publisher. I'm like, hey, what happens if my old publisher actually just goes out of business? And he said, well, you as long as you did it, as long as you have it in ebook format, that'll never go away. But as far as paperbacks, you might have an issue. And he told me how to get around that, and I already have that covered, so we're good to go. Whatever. I picked the wrong publisher the first time, but I should just be happy I got one published, I suppose. Pretty fucked up last week. You know what I mean? Really fucked up, actually. The shooting in Oxford thing has got me, thinking about a lot of things. I think it, for those of you who aren't aware, there was a shooting at Oxford High School in southeast Michigan. I think it was about a week ago. I think it was on Tuesday. A kid just, a lot of weird fucking shit about him having already been in the office, and he didn't search his backpack, and his parents insisted he stay. Whatever. Long story short, the kid pulls out a gun and goes to work shooting kids in the high school. And I mean, what a fucked up situation. I was a high school teacher for over a decade, and so I have thoughts about that. I have thoughts about like what the fuck happened there and what the malfunction was and where the school district fell short and where his parents fell short. I mean, it's easy to Monday morning quarterback that shit and look back and say you should have done this, you should have done that, and I'm going to address that term here in a bit. But in general, and granted, this might just be confirmation bias, but I see this as two different examples of what you get, how role modeling impacts boys. The shooter, how the fuck his dad, he's got two parents at home, how the fuck his dad or his older brother, I guess, who lives far away, but how he ever thought that was even a reasonable expectation of himself to go fucking shoot people. Just there must have been a million failures around this kid. As I've said several times, I mean, boys learn to be men through role modeling. That's it. Like, girls learn to be women biologically. Like, as far as how to be a mother and how to love and how to care and how to be warm and all that stuff, that just comes from within them. I mean, they'll see their role models, their mom, do that kind of thing. And, well, there's a good way to show this thing I already feel, but I already feel it. You know what I mean? Whereas boys, without a role model there, without some structure, they can go pretty far off the rails. And I think that this motherfucker, he definitely is an example of that, of going off the rails. Now, I don't know what his role model situation was. It clearly wasn't a good one. It is absolutely on him what he did. You own your actions, and that's that. In addition to that, I wonder what else is going on around him. That's all. But it's certainly a failure. I think the school district failed. And I'm not going to condemn the school district, not at all, because I know what it is to be in that building. There are so many pressures from the outside, state regulations, and you can't piss off parents, and the worst thing you can ever have is a PR black eye, and all these pressures make it a lot very difficult to do your job. I always paralleled being in education like fighting in Vietnam. Your hands are completely tied. There's all these PR things going on. Like I said, there's all this marketing essentially Everything's got to be spun correctly. You can't make any mistakes. The pressure is ridiculous. And, I don't know what the answer is to that, but I know, number one, what that feels like, and I know, number two, what the outcome of it is. And from a school district's perspective, sadly, most school districts believe that the biggest threat to kids is low self-esteem, and I think it's a fucking travesty. I've always thought that. Shit, I got out of education almost a decade ago, and I was in it for a decade before that. And I thought that then. I'm like, you guys are really worried about the wrong shit here, or you're worried about shit that really doesn't matter that much. The safe spaces and the gun-free zones and all that shit, I disagree with it. I think when you have a gun-free zone, you're basically setting up a target-rich environment for some asshole who wants to take advantage of it. If you can't fight fire with fire, if you can't defend yourself, if there is no reasonable threat of retaliation, you're a target. I mean, that's just what it is, and I'm not excusing at all the actions of this fuck ass who did this shit, or his parents or any of that stuff, but this is just a separate angle that I see in it, You can't, imagine it were a much bigger situation. You got a war type of situation where you've got one country that wants to take over the other country. If you have a threat of violence, you don't try to talk them out of it. You're not going to hug it out. You're not going to be some, you can PR your way out of that. You got to have the threat of violence behind you. You have to have that, or there's no real repercussions for someone attacking you. You see what I mean? And that's just a bigger example of what I think is going on in schools. I don't know the answer. I know that when I was in Indiana, I used to work out with the police department, and my buddy was the sheriff. And he used to drive from school district to school district talking to superintendents, principals, anybody who would listen. And he would talk about, his plan to put into place arming school officials, teachers, administrators, whatever it was. I can't remember exactly what the details of it were, but this isn't some fucking crazy nut job gun guy. I mean, the sheriff was a really level-headed, very intelligent, very wise, empathetic, nice guy, and he firmly believed that we've got to have some sort of capability for defense, or we're fucking targets. That's how he felt about it. And I agree. I really agree. And of course, nobody would fucking do it. And if all the school districts he'd go to, they'd all be like, well, we'd never get it past the parents. That was always the response that he would get. And, well, I mean, great. A metal detector makes everybody scared. But you know what? Being scared, not the worst thing that can happen. And I think we just saw that demonstrated. And I don't mean to make light of it, but, I see a lot of problems with how schools are run with regard to that, with regard to the defense capability. These are people who are busting their ass and working really hard, trying to do things right. And they're there to help kids. They don't make that much money. And I mean, like I said, I did it for a long time, and I got no knocks against educators, none whatsoever. But again, I do recognize that I think that the pressures are misplaced. The things that are guiding schools a lot of times are misplaced. People are just worried about the wrong shit. And I think in education, there's a certain mindset there. It's we love kids. We want to love them and care for them and help them get better. And that's a different mindset than we got to keep these kids from getting fucking, from school shootings from happening. The people who think this way don't really think this way. They're just afraid of it, but they don't prepare for it, right? You got to prepare for that. I mean, I just got one of the chapters in my book. I talk about, how you have to think through worst case scenarios and have a plan for it. It's a great stress reliever. It really is. And have some kind of like I said, a plan, a way to, turn the tables on that shit. And, I don't like it. I don't like that shit happened. It feels to me like some of our best intentions and some of the best parts of our America, that of free, very high quality public education, got attacked and used against us. That's what it feels like. And I don't like that feeling. And much like 9/11, which I was old enough, I was around, I was an adult, I was actually in the classroom when that happened. and I'm sure how people would talk about Vietnam, or I'm sorry, about Pearl Harbor. Um, it gets my hackles up, man. I just want to go fight it. I just want to go do something to stop it from happening again. And so, in that vein, I chose to. One of the 4 victims was a kid who was a football player, and obviously I'm a football guy, so that stands out to me. But evidently, from all the reports I'm hearing, I got a buddy who's got daughters who were in the building that day, who had a class with this shooter. It's some scary shit. And the information I'm getting is that this football player, who was a stud, he was potentially going to be a Division I football player, charged this kid with the gun, attacked him, and tried to disarm him. And he got killed, in act of that. But that's like real fucking heroism. That kid, that's what you get when you do have good role models. That's what a boy should aspire to, is, hey, I will put my own ass on the line to protect all of y'all. You know what I mean? I will do what needs to be done to protect the camp, the tribe, the team, the school, my family. That's a thing that should be inherent in every man. And it's definitely a thing that has gone way downhill in the last 40 years. It's one of the reasons why I've written this second book, is to try to bring things like that back out in men that I think are extremely positive, extremely helpful, that are missing and have been missing for a long time. And they hurt everybody when they're not there. They certainly hurt men. They hurt kids. Women don't like that. Women don't want a man who's soft and a bitch ass. You know what I mean? This kid, this football player who attacked this piece of shit with the gun, that's what a man should be. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things in that action. I don't know everything about him. He was only 16. So he did dumb shit. He messed stuff up just like everybody does. But when it came down to it, when everything was on the line, I can look at his actions and tell you some things about what was going on in his mind and his heart. And that doesn't get there on accident. He's got to see men around him thinking that way, acting that way, pushing those ideas, exercising those ideas. He's got to have good football coaches and good teammates and a good ass dad and probably good older brothers, and he's probably with the right friend circle, and like that just doesn't exist in a vacuum. It doesn't just come out of nowhere. With men, as I've said several times, you learn how to be a man. Boys learn how to be men socially. You've got to see it around you. You have to see it happening for you to see what it is and then know what to do. It's like walking. You when you're a baby, you see people walk, and so you stand up and walk. You try to do the things that you see. Women, it's a little different. Like I said, it's biological. But so I know that about that kid, and I chose to. I had a section on heroism in the second book already, but that was one of the things I did last night. Was I wanted to kind of make a tribute to that kid, and so I added him in along with some other men who've done heroic things, I should say. And I thought that action is a thing that should be honored, and I'm going to honor it. I'm going to, immortalize it. Actually, it'll be in print as long as one of my fucking publishers stays viable. But none of that was what I intended to talk about today. What I really want to dig into are some terms that I think are overused in our country. I think they're terms of entitlement. They're things that people want to overuse, and they're not really well understood. So let me dig into them. The first one is deserve. If you self-apply the term deserve, to me, every time I hear that, it's going to come out as whiny. If someone says, I deserve blah, 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 I automatically think to myself, you're a bitch. You know what I mean? Like, shut the fuck up. It's not up to you what you deserve. What's up to you is what you do up to that point. Your actions, how much work you put in, the things that come as a result of that work, of that grind, of your efforts. Someone from the outside can say, I think you deserve this because of what you've done. And you might within yourself say, I deserve to have a day off. Or I deserve whatever the fuck. And that's fine. If you've got that relationship with yourself, great. But you stepping out and saying to other people around you, I deserve X, Y, Z, you sound fucking entitled. I hear, I hear it a lot in commercials, and fuck, I mute all of them because they just fucking make me sick for a lot of reasons. But, if I'm watching a national football game or something, an NFL game or a college game, you can't help. You're going to catch some of that shit. You're up getting something to drink or whatever. And I hear people say, you deserve this. You deserve the best. You deserve. I don't think you do. You know what I mean? I just don't. Fucking work harder. You know what I mean? Work harder. Get your shit done. Organize your life. Discipline yourself. And the good things will come. You shouldn't be bothering yourself. You shouldn't be filling your mind with what you deserve. The more time you spend thinking about that, the less time you're spending working for it. I realize that sounds ridiculously cold, but as I said, this is just one of those things that I think is incredibly overused. If you're going to people whining saying you deserve something, you probably don't. That's just what it is. So deserve, that's one I'd like to see take a deep six. Shut the fuck up about that. Next one is rights. There's another one you see. Oh, you have the right to this. You have the right to that. No, you don't. All right. I'll tell you what a right is. A right is it's a legal term. I'm going to look it up right now. I should have done this earlier, but, let's think about the Bill of Rights. Okay. These are things that your government says we will not infringe upon these. We're going to set up a government so that, this is a thing that you as a citizen of our government, as people who are under our protection, or however you want to look at what a government does, they have the right to, not have to deal with this because of us. So let's see what you've got. We'll go through your fucking rights. First Amendment right to free speech. People want to talk about that all the time. Okay? And what the First Amendment is you have the right to say whatever you want about your government. You have the right to not be persecuted by that government for anything you want to say about them. You want to say, fuck Trump or fuck Joe Biden. You can. And you have the right to be free of any kind of legal repercussions from that. The government can't come after you for disagreeing with them. Okay? But that's just your government. You really don't have, let's take, again, the First Amendment. Let's take free speech. You don't have the right to have me not, agree with you. You could say, sure, you can go out there and say whatever the fuck you want, but the First Amendment doesn't protect you from me beating your ass or anybody else. You know what I mean? Not that that's a thing I'm going to do, but people think that this First Amendment right means that they have the right to never be disagreed with. You know what I mean? That's just not how it fucking works. It just means that the government's not going to fuck with you over it. You say something that pisses somebody off, you better expect a punch in the mouth. You should. If you are insulting people or being a fucking asshole, consequences come with that. And there's no law, there's no amendment that protects you from that. Okay? So understand what a fucking right is and what it isn't. People want to talk shit about the Second Amendment. You guys know that I own guns and I support that. That's just a thing that I do. I feel like it's a thing that I should do. It's an American. It is a right. The government cannot come take them from you. They can't make laws that say you can't have them. I mean, outside of fucking nukes and ridiculous shit, you have the right to protect yourself from a potentially oppressive government. Should the government come and try to take your guns, it is in the Bill of Rights, it is an amendment to the Constitution that you can shoot those motherfuckers down. Now, if they're already coming for them, you're probably going to go with them, but I don't know. I don't think that's a situation that's ever going to happen. I've talked about this before. There's 330-some million people here in the U.S., and there's 430-some million guns. That means it's like 1.3 gun for every man, woman, and child in the whole country. It's a lot of fucking guns. You know what I mean? And I think that's why the government would never come after us, because we do have the threat of being able to defend ourselves, which is a very good thing. That establishes balance. It establishes that we have a defense capability, and so our government cannot come after us. I mean, they can try to. Joe Biden, who we all know he's not really running the government. He's just a guy who stands there and bumbles. You know, that was the deal from the beginning, I believe. They're like, we'll give you all this money, and you're just going to be the guy, and we're going to do all the decision-making. Don't worry about it. We got it. That's what I think. But he said once, well, protect yourself from the government. Well, you'd need nukes and airplanes and all that shit to do that. My first thought was, are you telling me that you're going to use nukes and airplanes and shit against American citizens? Because that's pretty fucked up. You know what I mean? Like, you didn't realize the back end of what you were saying, but he's a dumbass. You guys kind of know that. Whatever you feel politically, you got to know that he's not all there. Everybody knew that. You know, he's always been kind of weird. But so there's your Second Amendment thing. As far as where I come out, I'm going to exercise my Second Amendment rights to protect your First Amendment rights, even if I disagree with what you say. If the government starts saying, oh, you can't say this shit, you can't do this shit, and I'm telling you it's happening in Canada. You know, I watched a hearing with Jordan Peterson, and I don't know how recent it was, but they're making laws that say that are anti-hate speech. And the hate speech definition is fairly loose. Everybody can agree, oh, you shouldn't do hate speech, you shouldn't hate people. But should there be a law that'll send you to jail if you do it? Because let's start thinking about it. If they're going to tell you what you can say, what are you saying other than what you're thinking? So essentially they're telling you can't think these things. And that's fucking 1984. That's the thought police. I'm rereading that book right now. And I mean, we've got some things that are headed in that direction. Now, thankfully, that's not happening here in the U.S. It's still the freest country there is. The things that are unfree, the things that people are not as free, I should say, that everyone is upset about, are things that might or might not be associated with the government. And I'm not sure if they are or not, but I know that, you know, you say some dumb shit on social media, and by dumb shit I mean anything that isn't pretty far left, you'll probably lose your job. That's how it goes. I mean, you're going to get fucking ridiculed. You're going to get ostracized. You're going to get deplatformed. And I don't like that, but I don't know if that's necessarily the government. And honestly, I think if the government stepped in and said, hey, you guys got to stop doing this shit, I think that's wrong too. You know, as an employer, you got the right to hire anybody you want and fire anybody you want. I think that's a good thing. I don't know. I don't know the answers here, but I know that the things that people don't like, you know, the way that you get deplatformed, again, is by saying anything. At this point, it happens to be stuff that isn't pretty far left. If you disagree, if you're doing some stuff that disagrees with the left, you know, you're going to go down. And that's what it is. And I don't like that. And I'm thankfully pretty much, you know, insulated from that. I don't have a job. I don't have people to protect. So I can say whatever the fuck I want, and I do. Yeah, rights are different. You don't have the right to feel a certain way. You don't have the right to. Those aren't fucking rights. Why don't you just say, hey, I feel this way? Don't say I have a right to. That's like trying to back somebody down like it's an accusatory, almost like passive aggressive thing. Like, oh, I have a right to feel this way. According to who? Who granted you that right? You know, what document are your rights written on? You know what I mean? Yeah, like, here's the definition as an adjective. Conforming with or conformable to justice, law, or morality. And again, you know, I don't know. That's the adjective definition. It doesn't say anything about, like, again, you got to realize if you say shit people disagree with, they're going to fucking disagree with you. That's how it goes. And the bottom line is, you then disagree with them. So you're both disagreeing. There is no fucking morality police out there. I know you guys believe that social media is that because they'll censor you, if you're not pretty far left. But anyway, rights, people misapply that term all the time. And if you're doing that, it's a bad look, okay? You sound weak. You sound like you're trying to fluff yourself up. You're trying to make yourself indefensible. You're trying to put yourself on a pedestal where you can't be attacked. Nobody's invulnerable to attack. You know what I mean? Just argue your point. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. That's that. It's not your fucking right. People, fuck, drives me nuts. Here's a big one. Should. I hear this term a lot, especially, again, going back to the shooting thing that I talked about earlier. It's all over the internet. As I look at, and I don't spend a whole lot of time on most shit, but because, this shit happened 20 miles from my house. It's a high school that, we would play, you know what I mean, at the school that I am associated with. I actually scouted them a couple times this year, and so I know who that kid was, and I have notes on him, and again, my buddy's kids go there, and Oxford is right next door to the high school I went to as a kid, and again, being associated with this, I want to see how it goes. I want to see how it goes down. And this word should get slapped around a lot. Like, again, people want to step in and say that the school should do this and the school should do that. You should check the kid's backpack. You should, send it or advance it to the principal. You should do this. You should call the police. You should, again, easy to Monday morning quarterback that shit. But every time you fucking use that word should, what you're doing is you're projecting your own fucking opinion on somebody. And it's the most judgmental shit in the world. When you tell somebody they should do something, it's an opinion. It's a judgment. And hey, great. You get to have opinions. That's great. And it's again, as I said, it's not a right, but you can have a fucking opinion if you want to. And you can spew it out there if you want to. But know that you're going to, somebody's probably going to come back and disagree with you. But the should term, like if a kid, like a former student. I had a former student reach out to me last week, and he was asking me about, he wasn't asking me, but he said he'd gone through a couple of difficult romantic situations. So I texted him a link to my audio book, because he would sound like he was rebuilding some shit. You know what I mean? Like he was trying to get back to level, dig himself out of a hole emotionally after some romantic issues. And hey, man, I'm in a position at that point to give him advice. He's another man at this point. He's younger than I am, but at one point he was a kid and I was a man, and I was in a position of guidance for him. I was his teacher. I was his track coach, and so in that vein, it's appropriate for me to throw some shoulds at him. And I told him, hey, man, you should read this book. It's going to help you. It'll get you thinking and get you moving in the right direction, and that's the direction of digging out of this hole. I also told him, hey, man, you should feel pretty good about yourself that you were willing and able to go in as far as you did emotionally with these two different women. It sounds like it was two different ones. And you gave everything you had. You got emotionally as deep as you could get, or pretty damn deep anyway, and you should be proud of yourself for that. Because, and that's kind of just looking at a silver lining for him, right? Like, so he doesn't know, he's not just digging out his heartbreak, hating life. I'm trying to show him that, hey, man, here's the good things that came out of this. Here are the positives. Here's the things you can be proud of yourself for. And coming from me, I know that I'm in a position of being a role model for him. So I'm going to try to do that. I'm going to try to show him some positives and try to give him some tools and some guidance. And guidance is hey, you should do this. You should do this to move forward. In that situation, I think it's perfectly appropriate. But to be a fucking layperson, just an angry parent or a Karen, and you want to talk shit about a school district, you haven't been on the inside of a school, you don't have an education degree, you've never been in a central office, you've never been in an administrator's meeting, you really don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You probably should shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? But know that when you slap out that word should, be careful about it. Okay? It's not, I think people use it to cast judgment. Well, you should get the vaccination to protect all of us, And I'm like, well, you got it. So aren't you protected? Aren't you safe? Isn't that how vaccination works? Now, this, we can all agree, is not a vaccination. It's a kind of an experimental treatment that evidently can decrease symptoms. But this whole, hey, I'm vaccinated and I got sick again, which it's incredibly common right now. that's just the most nonsensical statement ever. You're vaccinated for rabies. That means you can't get rabies. You got the MMR vaccinations, measles, mumps, rubella, before you went to school. That means you can't fucking get those things. You know what I mean? This isn't a vaccine. I think that's just being spun by the media and or the government. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, and watch YouTube take this one down too. But my point is the misuse of the term should. Stop slapping that fucking thing out there. It's, the people who say it are the ones who define themselves and like to, their whole identity politic is that I'm a liberal and I'm anti-prejudice and I'm anti-this and that. But the word should is incredibly judgmental. You are telling someone how they are supposed to live their lives, and that's an asshole thing to do. So keep that shit out of your mouth if you can. Anyway, that's episode 44, Quattro. My name is Travis Neville. This is the Travis Neville Podcast. I wrote this book called The Jossman Method, Conquering Life's Transitions. You can get it anywhere fine books are sold, as well as places where you get shitty books. There's cool stuff on the back, and it has an ISBN number, and I'm registered at the Library of Congress and all this bullshit. The second book, I'm going to drop that on the publisher this week, and then I'm going to go up north, and I'm going to sit in my sauna and enjoy the snow and fuck around and do shit like that. I hope that today, something here helped you to get your shit together. Have a great week.